Before we begin today's episode, we have an urgent appeal for your help. We desperately need your assistance in tracking down a fugitive who has been at large for over 30 years now. Have any of you out there seen this hedgehog? He is wanted for many crimes, including starting and leading a revolution that began way back in 1991. If you see him, for your own safety, please do not approach, and immediately drop us a message in the comments below. Now we return to our regular episode, and please, don't have nightmares. Hello everyone, welcome to the Re-Review, the series where I get to replay and reassess games from my favourite gaming era. I'm Brian, also known as UK Gen Zoidberg, and if you were a reader of magazines such as Games X or Amiga Action back in the early 90s, chances are that you will have read one of my reviews. You may even have gone out and bought a game based on my recommendation. In this series we're going to be finding out whether or not I helped you uncover something special, or if I should be apologising for you wasting your money. In this episode, the game that I'm going to be replaying is the platform game Titus the Fox, which was released in early 1992 by Titus Software. Going all the way back to the release of Donkey Kong in 1981, platform games have always been popular. Like many gamers, I've always been drawn to games that involve jumping around levels of some kind or other. 7-year-old me absolutely loved playing Pitfall on the Atari 2600. And when I got a Spectrum, which was my first home computer for gaming, my favourite games definitely included the likes of Jet Set Willy and the Monty Mole series. However, it was the release of Super Mario World and Sonic the Hedgehog in the early 90s, more specifically the latter, that really kicked off a boom in the genre. Suddenly, every developer and publisher under the sun was wanting to have their very own platforming mascot, usually a cute animal of some kind. I honestly lost count of the number of games that I saw being referred to as Sonic clones in their review. The quality, of course, varied wildly, and for every Mario or Sonic, we got a Bubsy the Bobcat. On the Amiga alone, we got Zool from Gremlin Interactive, James Pond from Millennium, Super Frog from Team 17, and Brian the Lion from Psygnosis, as well as many, many more. Turning a popular movie into a platform game became so popular that it was almost a cliché. And in 1991, Titus Software got in on the act when they released the Blues Brothers. It was well received by critics, with the Amiga version earning an impressive 87% average from magazines. It also sold very well. I've already talked about Titus Software way back in episode 7 of the Re-Review when I covered Crazy Cars 3, so if you want to know more about the company, I'll put a link to that video in the description rather than go through it all again here. Following on from the Blues Brothers later that same year, the same development team would produce another game called The Adventures of Mokhtar that was only released in France. In this one, players controlled a character that was based on a popular French comedian called Le Gaff, who had just had a hit single that topped the French charts for 11 weeks. It featured many of the same gameplay elements as the Blues Brothers, including levels that had multiple routes through them, and the ability to pick up and throw items at the enemies. It was clear though that if the game was going to be released outside of France, that the main character would have to be changed. So where did the team look to for their inspiration? No further than the fox in the company's own logo. Titus the Fox to Marrakesh and back, to give it its full name, was released in early 1992, and apart from the change of character and some sound effects, it's exactly the same game. Whereas the Blues Brothers was converted to every 16-bit system that you can think of, and more besides, that was not the case for Titus the Fox. Apart from the versions that appeared on home computers, the only other systems where you could play it were the Game Boy and Game Boy Color, released in 1993 and 2000 respectively. If you want to play it today, it's available on both GOG and Steam for the PC version, and the Amiga version was included as one of the games on the A500 Mini when that launched in 2021. Now let's check out my original review and see what I said about it first time around. My review appeared in issue 47 of Games X from March 1992. The second to last issue of the magazine that was ever published. It featured an exclusive preview of Core Design's Jaguar XJ220, which also adorned the cover. The only other Amiga game reviewed in the issue was Dynablaster, a game which had taken over the lunchtimes of nearly all the staff with its multiplayer mode. I was impressed with Titus the Fox, praising the level design with stages that were just the right length, the graphics with great backgrounds and cute characters everywhere, and the speed of the gameplay. My main issue with the game was the long loading pauses between levels, which went on far too long in my opinion, although I did also state that they gave you a nice rest from the fast action. Titus the Fox is a highly addictive platform romp with a very appealing central character and challenging gameplay. I felt that overall it was a better game than the Blues Brothers and scored it 4.5 X's out of 5. Both gameplay and presentation earned 16 out of 20, with the last ability faring slightly better at 17 out of 20. Here's how my score compares to the ones that appeared in other Amiga magazines at the time, and as you can see, its average score was a very impressive 88%. Now let's find out how the game fares today in the playtest.
Right, here's Titus the Fox. If you've played a lot of the Blues Brothers, as I have, then one of the first things that you'll notice about this game is the fact that a lot of the gameplay revolves around the similar sort of thing of picking items up and throwing them at enemies. But what you'll also notice is that it's slightly more fiddly. Because in the Blues Brothers, you could just pick an item up by just walking past it and pressing fire. Here you actually have to duck down and then press the fire button to pick it up. And you also have to be stood in exactly the right place, so it doesn't really lend itself to fast action gameplay quite like the Blues Brothers did. That is, as far as I'm concerned, the only thing where this game is worse. Throwing items up is actually a good way of killing enemies because it doesn't. You don't lose the item that you're throwing. Finding heavier things to throw like this cart is actually quite good as well because you don't lose this ever. It just kind of rolls back into view. The game is incredibly fast and smooth at nearly all times. But as I explained in my original review, the developers did include the option to press F10 and slow everything down a little bit. Certainly helps when it comes to getting past some of the more tricky sections of platforming. Ah, the magic carpet. Yes, there we go. This is one of the more annoying aspects of the game that I found is that, as you can see, there are some platforms here that disappear when they crumble away underfoot, and you have no way. There's no way of knowing which ones those are going to be. They just happen. So as you can imagine, it's incredibly frustrating when you get through a platforming section only to then find, oh damn it, I've dropped the magic carpet, only to then find that you're stuck. And the rubber ball is actually the best thing that you can find to throw, because this always bounces back to you. This is what this game constitutes as a boss fight. Literally, the guy doesn't move. And I don't think you still can. If you take an item out at the end of the level, I don't think you take it with you. It's somewhat annoying. The soundtrack is certainly one that doesn't get annoying, and it doesn't make you want to stop playing. I'm definitely going to slow things down here because I want to try and get to this secret area. It requires you to be able to get up here with an item. Right, and now I need to try and get back down here and pick up the other item that was down here. is definitely a better game than any of the other versions that I've seen, because the Atari ST and Amstrad versions had push scrolling, and that got really annoying. So you'd like, it wouldn't scroll till you got to the edge of the screen. And I think being able to scroll around the levels is a bit more important to the gameplay. That's it. I needed to get rid of that guy. Well, all of that was for nothing. Never mind. It's definitely good that everything is fast and smooth and responsive. There's too many platform games on the Amiga where things don't happen when you want them to. There's normally and that split-second delay can be all the difference. Oh, that was a fairly short level. One positive for this game is definitely that the levels aren't very long, and it's almost impossible to get lost on them. I do like the fact that in a lot of instances you can choose your route around the level as well. Ah, there's a spring there. Right, no, that's right. I need to get the spring to that platform. There's definitely still a lot to like about this game. Oh, I've lost my spring. There's a nice variety to the levels, nice enemy variety as well. The animation and graphics across the board are pretty decent as well. How on earth do I get out of here? So game over. I suppose the big question is, how does it compare to other platform games on the Amiga? Because there is some pretty stiff competition out there. So let's get on to the summary and find out.
One of the biggest challenges for any new platform game is whether or not the central character is appealing to the player. And this is one hurdle that Titus the Fox clears with ease. In fact, it's a very good looking game all around, with nicely animated enemies, and it all moves incredibly smoothly. All of the game's flaws are minor ones, such as the fact that you can't tell which platforms are too weak to stand on, so there's nothing here that's game breaking or that's going to make you get frustrated. I'm in two minds over the decision to include a button to slow down the action and make it easier in places. It's the kind of thing that would be heralded as great for accessibility in the modern era, but I feel like it was the developers admitting that the game was too hard in some places, and rather than redesign the levels to make it easier, they just instead included a button. Although obviously it's not that big of a deal, as you don't have to use it if you don't want to. My main complaint about the game is with regard to its controls. It's now far too fiddly to pick up items, requiring pixel perfect positioning that feels like it goes against the speed of the rest of the game. When you consider how simple it was in the Blues Brothers, I can't think why the developers didn't just rectify that system here. On the flip side, if you're playing it on the A500 Mini, you can now program in the jump control to a button rather than pushing up, and that makes it much easier to play. The Amiga isn't short of great platform games, and this is how I would rank Titus the Fox against the competition. It's only really the sheer quality of the games above it that stops it being any higher. I'll go into this extra long Super League in more detail in next week's video. It's a shame that this game didn't get converted to more systems or even get a sequel, as it's definitely still worth playing. The score that I would give it today is 8 out of 10. Thank you for watching this episode of the re-review. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, then please do give us a like and subscribe to show your support. The next episode will be out in 2 weeks' time, so make sure you hit that notification bell to make sure that you don't miss it. If you have missed any of the previous episodes, then please do check out the full playlist right here on the channel. A link to that will be coming up in a moment. If Titus the Fox was a game that you remember playing, I'd love to hear your memories of it in the comments. All opinions expressed in this video are entirely mine and not those of the UK Gaming Network team. If you want to hear more of my opinions, then please do follow me over on X at UKGN Zoidberg. Until next time, happy retro gaming, and I'll see you soon. There he is, found him.